Young Master Xiao Yin, it is time." The elderly face of Ling Ying wore a smile as he stood in front of the bamboo house and looked at the tightly shut door. His voice was soft as he called out, "Creak." The door squeaked and Xiao Yin slowly walked out from the room. The energy around the place seemed to have been vaguely disturbed after he stepped forward. Those deep, dark black eyes appeared as though it was a divine being that ruled over the souls. Ling Ying involuntarily bowed lower under the scanning of those eyes. The pleased expression on the corner of his mouth became increasingly dense. In the distant past, the young man had still appeared a little tender. Yet, he had reached the peak within a short few decades. Even Ling Ying could only look up to him. "Young Mrs. Eyesight is extremely good," Ling Ying smiled warmly. He lifted his head and looked at the beauty quietly standing beside the young man. It was as though this brightest pearl of the Gu clan would hide her dazzling brilliance only beside Xiao Yin and appear like a obedient little woman. She was just like the green-clothed young lady who was smiling and following being that youth in the Wu-Tang city decades ago. "Let's go. Old Ling, goodbye." Xiao Yin lifted his head. He looked at the mountain in front of him. It was possible for him to detect a large group of powerful auras swiftly gathering at that spot. Moreover, spatial fluctuation was also being emitted from two other directions. It seemed that the experts from the Lei and Yin clan had also been mobilized. Xiao Yin did not wait after his words sounded. He held Sun Er's hand and flew towards the sky in a flash. "Young Master Xiao Yin, I hope that you will return victorious." Ling Ying smiled and muttered as he watched the back of Xiao Yin Duo. By the time Xiao Yin Duo had arrived in the sky above the mountain, the area was already filled with many people. Numerous experts from the Gu clan rose into the sky and formed an orderly formation. Vast and mighty auras flowed acting like a single entity. That great mighty caused even Xiao Yin, who had stepped into the D-state soul, to involuntarily be surprised. "Ha ha, have they arrived?" Gu Yuan appeared beside the two of them after they appeared. His smiling eyes swept over them. An unknown feeling was present within his eyes. A moment later, he suddenly laughed. "It seems that the both of you are really planning on allowing me to be a grandfather as soon as possible." Gu Yuan's sudden words caused Xiao Yin to be startled. It also led to Sun Er's face to become like a red apple in an instant, which appeared quite cute. "Cough." Xiao Yin coughed dryly. It was unexpected that this Gu Yuan, who was filled with a mighty pressure, would actually utter such teasing words. All he could do was to helplessly shake his head. He quickly swept his eyes over the place and asked, "Is the Gu clan going out in force?" "It has not reached the extent of going out in force. However, we must definitely show our true strength. Our opponent is the extremely mysterious and unfathomable Hun Clan. We must not be careless." Gu Yuan sighed and said. Xiao Yin nodded slightly. His eyes swept over many experts and his heart was once again stunned by the Gu clan's strength. Gu Yuan was the strongest within the Gu clan. Under him was likely that black submerged king, Gu Lai, whom Xiao Yin had hardly met. Based on Xiao Yin's estimation, the strength of the black submerged king had likely reached the initial 8-star Dosheng class. Although he was a little weaker than the clan heads of the Yin and Lei clans, he was also a relatively powerful existence. Below the black submerged king, Gu Lai, were the three immortals of the Gu clan. The three of them were at the 7-star Dosheng class and were similar in strength to the 4 demon saints of the Hun clan. After the three immortals were the many elders of the Gu clan. Xiao Yin had never seen most of these elders. Clearly, they should be those who frequently undertook a retreat to train. His eyes had only briefly glanced past them when he discovered no less than 5 of them, having reached the 4 or 5-star Dosheng class. If this lineup was placed within the Central Plains, it would really be able to clear any obstructions. It was not mere rumors that allowed the Gu clan to take over the Shao clan and become the leader of the 8 ancient clans in name. Their strength is worthy of this position. Of course, this was the case if one excluded the usually mysterious Hun Clan. Even Gu Yuan and the others did not dare to guarantee that they completely understand the true strength of this clan. The gazes of the many elders were also looking at Xiao Yin, while the latter's eyes were sweeping over them. They smiled at him in a courteous manner. Although Xiao Yan's true ability was merely that of a 6-star doshang, his D-state soul had gave them an exceptional pressure. When those black eyes swept over them, it was as though their very souls had been penetrated. Naturally, they did not dare to underestimate Xiao Yin because of his age. Swoosh! An intense rushing wind sound was suddenly transmitted from the distant sky as Xiao Yin withdrew his gaze. A large group of black figures flashed over the sky. Finally, they appeared in the sky one after another. Many powerful auras immediately spread, causing the surrounding to tremble slightly. Ha ha, clan head Gu Yuan, young friend Xiao Yin. All the elites from my Yin clan has been mobilized this time around. Yin Jin smilingly cupped his hands together and faced Gu Yuan. Dozens of people stood behind him. All of them possessed powerful auras. Clearly, they were true experts. Xiao Yin merely randomly swept his eyes over them, after which they were paused on a spot behind Yin Jin. There was an enchanting, beautiful woman in red robes there. The beautiful woman had a tempting smile. Her middle-aged, attractive appearance was filled with a matured allure. However, Xiao Yin could tell at a glance that this beautiful woman was the second strongest expert from the Yin clan other than Yin Jin. Her strength had actually also reached the 7-star Doshang class and was similar to the 3 immortals of the Gu clan. The beautiful woman had also detected Xiao Yan's eyes when they paused on her body. She lifted her pretty eyes, and an enchanting smile was lifted on her face. There seemed to be a strange fluctuation being emitted from within her eyes. That fluctuation vaguely caused one to become a little absent-minded. Soul-tempting technique? Xiao Yin felt extremely surprised at this fluctuation. It was rumored that this was a kind of spiritual skill from the ancient times. It was able to covertly control someone without anyone noticing it. This could be considered strange. However, this was usually effective against those with spiritual strength that were weaker than her. The spiritual level of this pretty woman was clearly only at the perfect heavenly state. Using this so-called soul-tempting technique in front of Xiao Yin, while possessing a spiritual strength of this level, was really a joke. Xiao Yin involuntarily smiled and shook his head after having these thoughts. He smilingly looked at the pretty woman. An invisible mighty pressure quietly spread from his brow and gently made contact with the fluctuation that the latter emitted from her eyes. Qi. That mysterious fluctuation from the pretty woman collapsed almost instantly upon this slight contact. Her delicate figure suddenly trembled. Shock appeared in her eyes as she looked at Xiao Yin. Her soul had actually trembled under the mighty pressure. D-state soul? The pretty woman was also an extremely experienced person. She quickly comprehended the situation after only a momentary shock. Her face immediately appeared as though she had seen a ghost and hurriedly stopped this little trick of hers. Ha ha, young friend Xiao Yin, this is my Yan's clan elder Hualing. Yin Jim at the side laughed after feeling the pressure. After which, he turned his head and laughed towards the pretty woman. I have already told you not to play with your spiritual strength, or you will only end up eating a bitter pill. Yet, you don't believe me? Qi. It's Fairy Hualing, not Elder Hualing. The pretty woman curled her lips. Immediately, her eyes were watery as they looked at Xiao Yin and laughed. It is unexpected that he has reached the legendary D-state soul despite being only this young. One can really not just a book by its cover. The Xiao clan had produced a Xiao Xin back then. Now, it has produced another Xiao Yin. It seems the heavens has really blessed the Xiao clan. Those elders from the Yin clan behind Hualing also looked towards Xiao Yin in a stunned manner. D-state soul. Even clan head Yin Jin in the Yin clan had not reached this level. Fairy Hualing has really overly praised me. I was really lucky. Xiao Yin smiled. That fairy manner of address caused the smile on Hua Ying's face to become a lot more brilliant. Clearly, she really liked this form of address. Everyone should understand what we are going to do today. I shall not say anything more. Everyone should clearly understand the strength of the Hun clan in their hearts. If they were to fight, one must not underestimate the enemy. The members of the three clans became quiet after hearing Gu Yuan opened his mouth. They nodded in agreement. The former's reputation amongst the ancient clans was quite great. Moreover, his peak advanced 9-star Do Sheng strength caused one to feel some fear and respect. Since everyone understands, let's get moving. Gu Yuan looked at Xiao Yin upon seeing this. The latter nodded slightly. He waved his hand, and the many vast and powerful auras suddenly surged in this space. Go! Gu Yuan waved his sleeve after his voice sounded. The space in front of him cracked and formed a huge tunnel. He directly walked into it. The grave-looking Xiao Yin and Sun Er quickly followed. The experts from the three clans swiftly swarmed in. The spatial tunnel finally began to gradually scatter after the last person entered. Light figures swiftly rushed over the sky above the headquarters of the Sky Mansion Alliance on the Central Plains, while the large army left the Gu realm. After which, they flew towards the northwestern region of the Central Plains from all directions. The entire Central Plains turned into an uproar when such a large number of experts left the Sky Mansion Alliance. Everyone understood that the only enemy faction which could cause the Sky Mansion Alliance to dispatch such a large number of experts was the extremely mysterious Hun Clan. The shadow of a battle enveloped the entire Central Plains. The Burial Sky Mountain Range stood at the northwestern region of the Central Plains. It was likely that many on the current continent were unfamiliar with this region. However, it was extremely well known to some of the older generation of the ancient clans. This was because this place was where the Hun and Shao clans had fought back then. The Big War had once shook the entire Central Plains. There was an ancient battlefield deep within the mountain range. The battlefield was extremely vast, and there was usually many magical beasts present. It could be considered a dangerous place. Hence, it appeared a little desolated. The ancient battlefield today appeared somewhat mysterious. Those magical beasts which used to roam unchecked had completely disappeared. It was actually impossible to find even a single magical beast on this huge battlefield. That scene appeared as though they had detected an earth-shaking big battle that was about to erupt in this place. Swoosh, swoosh. A series of loud rushing wind sounds suddenly resounded over the mountain range, which all was absent of all beast roars. One could see a large number of figures appearing in the horizon. Within a couple of flashes, they had appeared in this ancient battlefield. We have arrived. Gu Yuan's feet gently landed on the ground. His eyes swept over this battleground that had been turned into ruins. His eyes appeared a little complicated. The big war between the Hun and Shao clan back then had begun in this place. It was unexpected that their battle with the Hun clan would also begin in this place thousands of years later. Search the mountain range. Many experts from the three clans rushed forward after everyone had just landed. They swiftly gave this mountain range a brief search as a precaution against any ambush that the Hun clan had placed. It seems that the Hun clan has yet to arrive. Yin Jin stepped forward. He looked at this somewhat desolated ancient battleground and remarked. Gu Yuan nodded slightly. Other than some magical beasts which were trembling under their pressure, there was no signs of any auras from the experts of the Hun clan. Those from the Sky Mansion Alliance have arrived. Xiao Yin suddenly lifted his head and smilingly watched the northern sky. Some familiar ripples was vaguely emitted from that spot. Everyone looked in the direction after Xiao Yan's words sounded. However, they were unable to see anyone. Nevertheless, no one doubted Xiao Yan's words at this moment. Other than Gu Yuan, it was likely that no one else present could compare with Xiao Yin in terms of spiritual strength. Soon after everyone focused their eyes, some rushing wind sound had suddenly appeared in the northern sky. After which, a black mass of human figures rushed over from all directions. Their numbers was actually not any inferior to the number of people the three clans mobilized. It looks like the Sky Mansion Alliance has really dispatched all its strength. A surprise flashed over Yin Jin's and Lei Ying's eyes as they looked at the vast and mighty lineup. Although the Sky Mansion Alliance might be inferior to the Yin and Lei clans in terms of elites, the number of experts they possessed had reached a terrifying level. Haha, it seems that we are not late. Black shadows swiftly appeared in the mountain range from all directions in front of everyone's eyes. The person in front was naturally Yao Lao. Behind him were Kai Lin, Little Fairy Doctor, Xiao Qian, and the others. Even the ancestor of the Pill Tower and Old Man Shen Nong had followed. It seemed that Yao Lao had the others had been busy recruiting this elder, who possessed an extremely great attainment in alchemist skills. Both parties had naturally engaged in polite conversation as the large army gathered. The ancestor of the Pill Tower and Old Man Shen Nong could be considered to be familiar with the three clans. They naturally had a lot to talk now that they had met. Xiao Chen, only the other hand, merely glanced at those from the three clans before walking towards Xiao Yin. "Are you all right?" Xiao Chen glanced at Xiao Yin. His stern face revealed a smile as he asked. Xiao Yin also grinned in the face of this kin, who could also be considered his ancestor. He nodded. However, he did not tell Xiao Chen about what had happened to Xiao Xin at this moment. He understood that Xiao Chen and Xiao Xin were very close. If the former was to learn about this news, it would likely be a big blow to him. Hence, there was no harm in temporarily keeping it a secret. A fragrance suddenly pounced over while Xiao Yin was chatting with Xiao Chen. He lifted his head and saw Kai Lin's bewitching cold face. Xiao Yin rubbed his nose and laughed dryly after seeing Kai Lin's somewhat cold manner. "Elder sister Kai Lin, we have met again. Is Xiao Xiao doing well?" Sun Er, who was standing beside Xiao Yin, saw Kai Lin slowly walking over. A ripple appeared in her eyes before she inquired with a gentle smile. Kai Lin's cold face revealed a slight smile upon hearing this. He softly said, "Aye, she's well. However, she is bemoaning that a certain person being absent from home all the time." Sun Er smiled upon hearing those words. Xiao Yin by the side could only shake his head helplessly. It seemed that Kai Lin was a little displeased that he had been missing for such a long time. "Are your injuries healed?" Kai Lin curled her lips slightly after seeing Xiao Yan's manner. Her tone was suddenly a lot gentler. Although she was a little angry with Xiao Yin for not returning home despite being injured, rational thought still dominated her mind. That feeling was merely something that a woman normally had. I'm fully recovered," Xiao Yin smiled. He immediately swept his gaze around and asked, "Isn't the Alliance afraid of someone destroying its foundation with so many of its experts being dispatched?" "Yao Lao has said that this is very important to you," Kai Lin replied. Xiao Yin was startled. His heart immediately became warm. With the arrival of the army from the Sky Mansion Alliance at the ancient battlefield, the entire mountain range had quickly become a lot more lively. Moreover, there were also many experts from the central plains outside of the mountain range who had been attracted because of the activity. However, they did not dare to step into the mountain range after arriving at the Burial Sky Mountain Range. This was because they could sense that the auras gathered in this place had reached a terrifying level. If they were to be dragged into a battle at such a level, it was very likely that they would end up dying. After a brief interaction following the gathering both parties, everyone once again became cautious. Their sight spread over the place and encompassed the entire Burial Sky Mountain Range. Any activity present would be immediately feedback to Xiao Yan's group. Time slowly passed amidst this wait. The moment the bright sun reached its peak, Xiao Yin and Gu Yuan, who had been sitting on a huge rock, suddenly opened their eyes together. A low voice caused everyone to become suddenly tensed. They have arrived. The interior of the mountain suddenly revealed layers of black fog after the voices of those two sounded. Black fog lingered over the place. Finally, it turned into a huge spatial tunnel. Numerous mighty sinister auras surged from it. Black fog surged in the sky and directly cut off the sunlight. Immediately, the temperature of the surroundings fell. A kind of dark and cold aura spread. Ha! This burial sky mountain range has not been so lively for a long time. The black fog churned in the sky, and Hun Tiandi's figure appeared from nowhere. His eyes swept over the large army below. A smile appeared on his face as he spoke. The nihility devouring flame, the 4 demon saints of the Hun Clan and many other Hun Clan's experts also flashed and appeared behind Hun Tiandi. It seemed that the Hun Clan was also clearly aware of the battle today. Hence, it had also maneuvered quite a lot of experts. Hun Tiandi, return the ancient jades of our 3 clans. Otherwise, we will definitely attack your Gu realm in the future. Laying let out a cold cry. His expression sunk after seeing Hun Tiandi appeared. Losing the ancient jade had caused him to be extremely furious. Naturally, he could not suppress the anger in his heart now that he had seen the other party attacking the Hun realm. There is perhaps no one with the strength to do so in the present world. Hun Tiandi laughed out loud in the face of Lei Ying's furious cry. He immediately ignored the former as his eyes were thrown towards Xiao Yin. He spoke in a faint voice. What do you plan to do? Are you going to use the ancient jade to exchange for the person you want, or are you going to forcefully snatch him? I wish to meet my father. Xiao Yan's eyes did not shift away as he stared at Hun Tiandi and slowly said. Hun Tiandi glanced at Xiao Yan upon hearing this. He immediately waved his hand, and the space behind him fluctuated. The sound of chains soon sounded, after which a prison, which was formed from black fog, appeared in the sky. There was an elderly figure seated within, many chains tightly entangled around him like poisonous snakes. Xiao Yan's eyes were focused on that elderly figure the moment the prison appeared. His body involuntarily trembled. Although it was a little blurry, the blood flowing within Xiao Yan immediately told him that the figure was indeed his father, Xiao Zhan. Decades had passed. The high-spirited clan head from back then had become this white-haired, elderly figure. His originally strong body had become skinny and frail during this time. He had been imprisoned for decades. Xiao Yan's body continued to tremble. He looked at the heavy metal chains on that elderly figure. Waves after waves of wild, murderous intent churned within his heart. He clenched his fist tightly, allowing his nails to press into his palm. Droplets of blood rolled out from them and fell. Hun Tiandi, if I have the opportunity to do you, I will turn your Hun clan upside down. Xiao Yan's blood-red eyes suddenly turned towards Hun Tiandi. His voice was hoarse and low. At the same time, an incomparably frightening spiritual fluctuation spread in wave-like fashion with him at the center. Immediately, dark clouds churned and thunder roared. D-State Soul? Those experts from the Hun clan, who had just gave Xiao Yan a smile of disdain, suddenly had stiffened expressions after the spiritual fluctuation was emitted. Even Hun Tiandi finally had a slightly altered expression. Clearly, he did not expect that Xiao Yan's spiritual strength had actually soared until such an extent within a short half a month. What a great Xiao Yan! Hun Tiandi's voice was low and deep. There was a faint murderous intent within it. The current Xiao Yan had finally caused him to feel a little threatened. Xiao Yan? The elderly figure, being heavily restrained by the metal chain within the cage, suddenly trembled because of Hun Tiandi's words. He slowly lifted his head. A turbid expression appeared in his eyes. Finally, they paused on the black-clothed young man who was floating in the sky a short distance away. His body stiffened immediately. Tears rolled down from his eyes. His hoarse, elderly voice was filled with an incomparable sadness. Yin. Yin'er.